In the Chumash, in the Torah itself, the second verse of creation, the earth was null and void, and there was darkness upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God hovered above the water. And we see from this a concept of cosmic DNA. Just like you have physical DNA, which dictates the path and the growth of an individual, we have a concept of cosmic DNA where the entire script and potential was laid out at the beginning of creation that basically is the potential for all that's going to happen from that moment onward until the end of history. Everybody's life, everybody's existence, everybody's name, their family, who they're going to marry, it's all inside the Torah. So we can ask a question. How can we have a verse at the very beginning of creation talking about history that is dependent upon events happening that haven't even occurred yet? According to Kabbalah, every day of creation is also like a cosmic root for all that's going to happen in the corresponding 6,000 years. The Talmud tells us that there are 6,000 years to history. Why 6,000 years? Because the 6,000 years are rooted in the 6 days of creation. In other words, whatever happens in the first millennium, by definition, has to have some type of root in what God was doing the first day of creation. Same thing by the second day of creation. Whatever happened on the second day of creation is going to give rise to whatever happened historically in the second millennium. And so forth, the third day, the fourth day, the fifth, and the sixth day. The Jewish people had 2 temples. Both temples were destroyed in the 4th millennium. The first temple was destroyed in the year 3338, which corresponds to the year 423 BCE. And the second temple was destroyed in the year 3830, 70 CE. Each of the temples was destroyed in the 4th millennium, which means the light of the Jewish people was reduced significantly in the 4th millennium. Well, following this concept, there had to be something in the 4th day of creation, something that went wrong, that gave rise to the possibility that the non-Jews could come into Eretz Israel and conquer these temples. So Rashi points out that the moon is the symbol of the Jewish people. And we go back to day 4 of creation and see that the light of the moon is reduced on day 4, all of a sudden we have an explanation for why both temples can be destroyed in the 4th millennium. Why specifically that millennium? Why at that time? And where does strength come to be able to overwhelm the spirituality that's imbued in the temple? This is God's house. How can people destroy God's house? But here we are in the year 5760, towards the end of the 6th millennium. There's still 240 years left to go. The 6th millennium corresponds to the 6th day of creation. The 6th day's over. We know what happened in the 6th day. Not only that, what was the most significant event to affect mankind at that time and through all of history? What happened in the 6th day that besides the creation of man, something happened at that time that we're still paying for? Kabbalah tells us that 1 hour in the course of the 6 days of creation is equal to 83.33 years in the course of 1 millennium. Now we can make a connection. We can go back to creation and see what happened when and figure out what that corresponding period of time is in the course of the millennium. There's only one major problem. You open up the Chumash, you look at day 1, and day 2 and day 3, all the way through day 6. It never tells you when God does what. It tells you on day 1, God made the light. On day 2, He divides the waters. On day 3, He makes the land and the grasses and the herbs. On day 6, He makes man. And also He makes the animals. And also Adam eats the tree of knowledge of good and evil. What hour? Fortunately, there is one day we know what God was doing hour by hour. For example, the Talmud says the first daylight hour, God brought together dirt from all over the world to form Adam. That way man could be adaptable in all the environments all over the world because he's a piece of every part of the earth in him. The second hour, God shaped the limbs. The third hour, God completed the shaping of Adam. The fourth hour, he breathed into Adam a soul, so Adam became a living being. The fifth hour, Adam stood up, the Talmud says. The sixth hour is when he names the animals, which is spoken about in the Chumash. The seventh hour, Chava is created, he gets a wife. The eighth hour, Cain is born, says the Talmud. The ninth hour is when God says, do not eat the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And the 10th hour, says the Talmud, is the hour in which Adam HaRishon broke the command and ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Based upon this, it should be possible to figure out at what point in the 6th millennium corresponds to the hour that Adam HaRishon ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You make the calculation. It turns out that hour 10 of the 6th millennium began in the year 1990, 5750 from creation. So if that's the case, if that's true, there must be something in the physical world that represents this truth, this idea. We can point and say, that's got to be the tree of knowledge of good and evil. What's it supposed to be? In the entire history of mankind, going all the way back to creation, there has never been anything that has been such a tremendous proliferator of good, of knowledge, of evil. Nothing. You have right before you a modern version of an Eitz das Tov v'Ra. The internet is such a fantastic vehicle for bringing knowledge to Anchorage, Alaska, what you can't gain, the research you can do sitting in one spot. It is a tree of knowledge for sure. Good, absolutely. Evil, absolutely. How many bombs, how many guns have been put together based upon information from the internet? How much hate? The Ku Klux Klan? Everybody has a website. If you look, history books, you'll see that the World Wide Web made its official appearance into the public arena in the year 1990. The very year that symbolizes the period of time that corresponds to the Chet of Adam HaRishon, the original mistake that Adam made by eating, is exactly the year the World Wide Web came into existence for the public. But something else happened in 1990 that literally changed the face of Jewish history. A man named Gorbachev gets into power. He introduces a concept that everybody is now talking about, perestroika. Russia's changing overnight. The Berlin Wall's coming down. In 1988, nobody believed the wall would come down in 89. And certainly that Russia would implode and let the Jews out. In 1990, there was tremendous aliyah, to Eretz Israel. Jews were going all over the place. It was the last remaining place that a large body of Jews were being persecuted physically because they were Jewish.